Our next honoree is Mark Hoffards. His career accomplishments: All-American Football 1951, coached high school football, basketball, track, and baseball, forward on the Sweet 16 Johnston City basketball Indian team 1949-50, captain Indian football team, All-State Football 1951, IHSA state qualifier in the hurdles, played football at Western Kentucky University. Speaking on behalf of Mark Hoffards, please welcome Andy Lee.
Good evening. Like everybody else, it's an honor and certainly a privilege to be here with you tonight. I've enjoyed this so far, haven't you?
Yes.
And this is the first. I'm not really good at anything except maybe talking too long, and so I've never been around a Hall of Fame, and but I've certainly enjoyed the evening. I'm Mark's pastor. He does not get very athletic in our church services on Sunday. A few weeks ago, they asked me to speak on Mark's behalf tonight, and or for Mark, and they handed me an envelope and said, "Here's some articles about him." And so the last few weeks, I've come to learn a whole lot about Brother Mark and some different things about him. His sports career started when he was just a young lad. He went to Lee Elementary School, and Lee was located just northeast of Johnston City. They had 23 students in a one-room schoolhouse for ages 1st to 8th grade. Their basketball team made up of 9 young men. There was only 11 boys in the school, so 1st through 8th grade played on the team. Mark and his brother were two of the standouts. In 1948, the year before he would go to Johnston City High School, was their standout basketball year. They had a head coach named Bonnie Matheny. She was a strawberry, blonde-headed woman. There was many articles about Bonnie Matheny as maybe Mark at the time. And anyway, they went on 19-game winning streak, and they ended up in the Johnston City Regional Tournament. That year, Mark scored 560 points. He averaged 26 points a game. Many of the articles even said that, a few people said that he was one of the greatest elementary basketball players that they'd ever seen play. And the irony of the situation is that when they were, after winning 19 games in a row, they were to face up, Lee Elementary was to face up with his future alma mater, Johnston City, which handed them their very first loss of the season. So I thought it was interesting they lost to Johnston City. In 1949, just as the MC mentioned moments ago, Mark began his high school career where he would stand out in basketball, football, baseball, which I think, if I understand correctly, baseball had a hiatus for a while after they had a tragedy in the local area, and track as well. It's interesting because he's talking about names that he played with during the high school team are names that y'all are recognizing tonight. And so these teams must have been pretty good. When I was reading this stuff, I have 2 little boys. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old, and they're into sports just like their dad is. And they're saying, "Dad, what are all these old newspaper articles?" And I said, "Well, I told them what I was doing tonight." And they said, hey, how come Marion never plays Johnston City? See, we live down in Marion. I said, "Probably because we lose to them, son." I said, "Because all these times that I'm reading these articles, Johnston City always beats Marion." And Caleb, my oldest son, he said, "Well, why don't we just start rooting for Johnston City all the time?" I said, "It sounds like a plan." In 1951, Mark became Illinois State in the Illinois State All-State player in the state of Illinois, but he also became All-American. As MCA said earlier, it's just a few people in the world who can say they're All-American players. Johnston City has 5 of them. Mm-hmm. That's highly impressive for any school, especially with the size and population of Johnston City. Mark, that's a great achievement and a great accomplishment. In 1952-53, the year after he graduated Johnston City High School, Mark became a Western Kentucky Hilltopper. And for the next 7 years, he would be a Hilltopper. And that would be because he would be drafted into the United States Navy, serve our country proud. From the Western Kentucky Hilltoppers, he graduated with a double major, PE and biology. And he figured he knew sports all his life, so he might as well go continue to do something in sports. And he became head coach at Crab Orchard High School, where he led them to a basketball title in the Egyptian Conference. And then in 1964, 4 to 5, Mark became head coach right here at Johnston City High School, which is some of the most interesting things, because in the articles you see in the paper, you don't see a lot about the stats and things like this. You usually see Mark and a referee. And there were usually hands up in the air. One picture, I kid you not, the ref is going like this. I said, Mark, what's going on here? He said, well, he gave me a technical foul. I said, well, what for? He said, well, it was the third one he gave me that night. I said, 3 technical fouls wouldn't be thrown out of the game. He said, no, you get as many as you wanted back then. I said, well, what'd you say to him? He said, well, he couldn't call right to save his life. He said, I told him he need to get his eyes checked. I said, well, do you ever have any of those problems in football? He said, yeah, I used to tell the referees that they stunk. He said, I said, well, what'd you do? And he said, they'd throw a flag. He said, they marched down the field 15 yards. He said, one referee looked at me and says, how do I smell from here, Hoffards? Mark said, you still stink. They added on another 15. Needless to say, Mark was a very ambitious person when it came to coaching. I asked his wife, Millie, I said, Millie, do you remember any of these temperament problems that he might have had? She said, yeah, one of the most embarrassing moments of my life took place in 1964 at El Dorado High School. She said after a couple technical fouls had taken place, the ball came rolling down by Mark's bench. Mark just decided he would give that thing a drop kick and kicked it right towards the scoreboard. Yet another technical foul. Mark would coach for a few more years, and then he would go on to be an athletic director as well as assistant coach in Johnston City and a teacher, and he retired in 1989. I've had a lot of fun reading all this, and I've had a lot of fun being here tonight. One of the things that I've noticed, I'm 33 years old. I was born in 1980. Most of the people in this room had already graduated high school and were living your lives by 1980. What I learned is the men and women whom we're talking about tonight, they're different breeds. Y'all are different breeds. You guys came from tough, you were determined, you had guts, and you had grit. And in the future years, more and more, these things are gleaming. And so we thank you very much for your inspiration. Mark, I thank you for being a man's man. And you're respectable and you're honorable. And at the end of the day, you need to hold your head up high. You got a lot of people who are proud of you, and you've done a terrific job, and you certainly deserve this. And so on behalf of this, I like to present Brother Mark Hoffards.
Well, I know a lot of you's in this room, I'll tell you that, because I taught here. See, I taught at Crab Orchard 5 years, and I taught at Johnston City for 26, I believe. And I had a lot of you in biology, and a lot of you I coached. I want to thank the committee. This is the greatest honor I've ever received in my life. Thank you very much.